Welcome to Your Deep Dive. Today we're going to tackle open innovation, and we'll be going deep into Henry Chesbrough's book, Open Innovation, the new imperative for creating and profiting from technology.
I'm excited to be here.
I think a lot of our listeners are familiar with this concept.
Yes, but it's one of those things that's really easy to oversimplify.
Right. It's not just about like, hey, let's all share our ideas and everything will be great.
Exactly. There's a lot more to it than that. And Chesbrough does a really good job of laying out the nuances.
Yeah, he really digs into like the historical context, the challenges, the opportunities.
And he uses some really compelling real-world examples to illustrate his points.
Yeah, like Xerox pours.
Right. Xerox PARS is like the poster child for what can go wrong when you don't embrace open innovation.
They invented so much incredible technology, but they completely missed the boat on capitalizing on it.
It's a cautionary tale for sure.
So let's start there. Can you give us a quick rundown of what happened at Xerox PORS?
Well, in the 1970s, Xerox created this research center called POR-ARC in Palo Alto, California.
And it was like a hotbed of innovation, right?
Oh, absolutely. They came up with all sorts of groundbreaking stuff like the graphical user interface, the mouse Ethernet laser printing.
The list goes on and on.
It's amazing to think about how much of what we take for granted today originated at PRX.
But Xerox didn't really capitalize on any of it, did they?
No, not really. They were so focused on their copier business that they just didn't see the potential of these new technologies.
It's like they were stuck in a rut.
Yeah, kind of. They were so successful with their existing business model that they didn't want to rock the boat.
It's a classic case of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Exactly. But the problem is the world was changing around them.
And they didn't adapt.
Right. They missed out on a huge opportunity to become a leader in the personal computing industry.
And to be fair, personal computing was pretty fringe back then.
Yeah, but that's the thing about open innovation.
You have to be willing to embrace the unknown, to step outside of your comfort zone.
Exactly. You have to be willing to experiment, to take risks, to partner with others.
Because you never know where the next big idea is going to come from.
That's the beauty of it. It could come from anywhere, from inside your company, from outside your company, from a completely different industry.
So Xerox is our cautionary tale. What about a company that got it right?
Well, IBM is a great example of a company that successfully transitioned from a closed innovation model to an open innovation model.
They were the kings of closed innovation for decades.
Absolutely. They were all about vertical integration, doing everything in-house, controlling every aspect of the process.
But then the world started to change.
Right. The PC revolution happened, the internet took off.
And suddenly, IBM was facing all sorts of new challenges.
They realized they couldn't do it all themselves anymore.
They had to adapt.
So they started embracing open standards, they started partnering with other companies, they started acquiring startups.
It was a huge shift in their thinking.
It was, and it was incredibly successful. IBM is still a major player in the tech world today because they were willing to change.
So the lesson here is that even the biggest companies can't afford to be complacent.
Absolutely. The world is changing too fast. You have to be constantly evolving, constantly adapting, constantly learning.
And you have to be open to new ideas from wherever they may come.
Exactly. That's the essence of open innovation.
Okay, so we've talked about Xerox and IBM. Let's move on to another company that has a really interesting approach to open innovation, Intel.
Intel is fascinating. They've been incredibly successful with their copy exactly methodology.
Copy exactly. What's that?
It's all about perfecting existing technologies and scaling them rapidly.
So they're not necessarily focused on coming up with brand new inventions.
Right. They're more about taking what already works and making it better, faster, and cheaper.
It's like the opposite of move fast and break things.
Yeah, exactly. It's more like move slowly and perfect things.
And it's worked really well for them.
Oh, absolutely. They're one of the most successful companies in history.
But they're not afraid to innovate, are they?
No, not at all. They're just very strategic about it. They focus on incremental improvements rather than radical new inventions.
And they're very good at managing their ecosystem.
Yes, they invest heavily in companies that make products that complement their microprocessors.
So they're essentially driving demand for their core product by supporting the growth of the entire industry around it.
Exactly. It's a very smart approach.
So we've seen three very different approaches to open innovation. Xerox, which failed to adapt, IBM, which successfully transitioned, and Intel, which has a very unique and effective strategy.
It's amazing to see how these companies have navigated this new world.
And it really highlights the fact that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to open innovation.
Every company has to find what works best for them.
But the one thing they all have in common is that they're all open to new ideas.
Absolutely. And that's the key takeaway here. If you want to be successful in today's world, You have to be open to new ideas from wherever they may come.
You have to be willing to challenge the status quo, to experiment, to collaborate.
And you have to be willing to let go of the old ways of doing things.
Because the world is changing faster than ever before.
And if you're not adapting, you're falling behind.
So let's dive deeper into this idea of adapting to the new world of open innovation. What are some of the specific challenges that companies face?
Well, one of the biggest challenges is overcoming the not invented here syndrome.
Right. That's the idea that if we didn't invent it, it can't be any good.
Exactly. And it's a huge barrier to open innovation.
Because it prevents companies from seeing the value in external ideas.
Right. They're so focused on what they're doing internally that they miss out on all the great stuff that's happening outside their walls.
So how do you overcome that?
Well, it takes a conscious effort to change the culture of the company.
You have to create an environment where people are encouraged to bring in new ideas from outside.
And you have to reward people for doing that.
Because it's not always easy to challenge the status quo.
No, it's not. But it's essential if you want to stay ahead of the curve.
So overcoming the not invented here syndrome is one challenge. What are some others?
Well, another big challenge is managing intellectual property.
IP is a huge issue in the world of open innovation.
It is, because you're constantly sharing ideas with other companies.
And you have to be very careful about protecting your own IP while also respecting the IP of others.
Right. It's a delicate balance.
And it's something that companies are still figuring out.
Yeah, there's no easy answer. But it's something that you have to think about very carefully if you're going to embrace open innovation.
Okay, so we've talked about some of the challenges. Let's switch gears and talk about the opportunities. What are some of the potential benefits of open innovation?
Well, one of the biggest benefits is that it allows you to tap into a much wider pool of knowledge and expertise.
Instead of just relying on the people within your own company, you can access the best minds from all over the world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that can lead to some truly groundbreaking innovations.
It's like crowdsourcing innovation.
It is, and it's incredibly powerful.
Another benefit is that it can help you reduce your costs and speed up your time to market.
Right. If you can license a technology from another company instead of developing it yourself, you can save a lot of time and money.
And you can get your product to market much faster.
Exactly. So there are a lot of potential benefits to open innovation.
But it's not without its challenges.
Right. You have to be strategic about it. You have to think carefully about how you're going to manage your IP, and you have to be willing to change the culture of your company.
But if you can do all of that, the rewards can be huge.
Absolutely. Open innovation is the future of business, and the companies that embrace it will be the ones that succeed in the long run.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive. We've talked about the history of open innovation, the challenges, the opportunities, and some real-world examples.
And we've just scratched the surface.
There's so much more to explore.
Absolutely. And in the next part of our deep dive, we're going to dig even deeper into the practical aspects of open innovation.
We're going to talk about specific strategies and tactics that you can use to make open innovation work for your company.
So stay tuned for part 2.
We'll be right back after a short break.
Welcome back.
All right, so before the break, we were talking about some of the challenges and opportunities of open innovation.
And one of the things I wanted to touch on is how open innovation changes the way we think about intellectual property or IP.
Yeah, IP is a big deal.
It is. And it's something that a lot of companies struggle with when they start to embrace open innovation.
Because in a traditional closed innovation model, you want to protect your IP at all costs, right?
Exactly. It's all about building walls around your ideas and keeping everyone else out.
But in an open innovation world, that approach doesn't really work.
Right, because you're trying to collaborate with other companies.
And you have to be willing to share some of your IP.
Yeah, but it's not just about sharing. It's about being strategic about how you manage your IP.
So it's like a balancing act.
It is. You have to find a way to protect your core IP while also being open to sharing other parts of it.
So how do you do that?
Well, Chesbrough talks about thinking of IP as trading cards.
Trading cards.
Yeah. You can collect them, trade them, or even use them as leverage to gain something more valuable.
So you're saying that companies should be thinking about buying A&D, selling IP.
Absolutely. It's all about being strategic.
So it's not just about protecting your IP. It's about using it to create value.
Exactly. And that's a big mindset shift for a lot of companies.
Because they're so used to thinking of IP as something that needs to be locked away.
Right. But in an open innovation world, IP is an asset that can be used to drive growth.
Okay, so how do you actually do that? How do you manage your IP in an open innovation context?
One of the keys is to understand the market for ideas.
The market for ideas.
Yeah, there are buyers and sellers just like in any other market.
So companies need to figure out where they fit into this market.
Exactly. Are they going to be net buyers of IP net sellers or a combination of both?
And once they figure that out, they need to develop a strategy for managing their IP portfolio.
Yeah. Right. They need to think about what IP they want to protect, what IP they're willing to share, and what IP they want to acquire.
It sounds complicated.
It can be, but it's essential if you want to be successful in an open innovation world.
Okay, so we've talked about the market for ideas. What are some other important considerations for managing IP in an open innovation context?
Well, one thing to keep in mind is that not all IP is created equal.
Meaning?
Well, some IP is more valuable than others.
Right. Some ideas are just better than others.
Exactly. And you need to be able to identify your most valuable IP and protect it accordingly.
So how do you do that?
Well, there are a lot of different factors to consider, but one important factor is the potential market for the IP.
If an idea has the potential to generate a lot of revenue, it's probably worth protecting.
Exactly. And another important factor is the competitive landscape.
If you have a unique idea that your competitors don't have, that's also worth protecting.
Right. So you need to be very strategic about which IP you choose to protect.
Okay, so you've identified your most valuable IP. What do you do with it?
Well, you have a few options. You can patent it, you can keep it as a trade secret, or you can license it to other companies.
So patenting is still an option in an open innovation world.
Absolutely. It's just one of many options.
And it's not always the best option.
Right. Sometimes it makes more sense to keep your IP as a trade secret.
Especially if it's something that's difficult to reverse engineer.
Exactly. And sometimes it makes sense to license your IP to other companies.
Especially if you don't have the resources to develop it yourself.
Right. So there are a lot of different ways to manage your IP in an open innovation context.
And it's all about finding the right approach for your company.
Exactly. There's no one-size-fits-all solution.
All right, so we've talked about how to manage your IP in an open innovation context. Let's move on to another important aspect of open innovation. Building an ecosystem.
Ecosystem is a great way to think about it.
Because you're not just working with one or two companies, you're working with a whole network of partners.
Exactly. And that network can include suppliers, customers, universities, research institutions, even competitors.
Competitors?
Yes. Sometimes it makes sense to collaborate with your competitors.
I guess that goes back to the idea that not all IP is created equal.
Right. You might be able to collaborate with a competitor on one area while still competing with them in another area.
So how do you build a successful ecosystem?
Well, it starts with identifying the right partners.
And that's not always easy.
No, it's not. You need to find partners who share your vision, who have complementary skills, and who are willing to work together in a collaborative way.
And once you've identified the right partners, you need to build strong relationships with them.
Right. You need to communicate effectively, share information, and build trust.
And it takes time.
It does. Building an ecosystem is not something that happens overnight. It's an ongoing process.
But the rewards can be huge.
Absolutely. A well-functioning ecosystem can help you innovate faster, bring products to market quicker, and reach new customers.
So it's worth the effort.
It definitely is.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground in this second part of our deep dive. We've talked about how to manage your IP in an open innovation context and how to build a successful ecosystem.
And in the next part of our deep dive, we're going to wrap things up by talking about some of the key takeaways from Chesbrough's book.
And we'll give you some practical advice on how to make open innovation work for your company.
So stay tuned for part 3. Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive.
All right, so we've talked about the history of open innovation, the challenges, the opportunities.
We've looked at some companies that have done it well and some that haven't.
And we've explored how open innovation changes the way we think about intellectual property and building ecosystems.
Now it's time to bring it all together and talk about what it all means for you.
Right. Our listener wants to know how to actually make open innovation work in the real world.
And Chesbrough offers some really practical advice in his book.
So let's dive into that. What are some of the key takeaways?
One of the most important takeaways is that open innovation is not a one-size-fits-all solution.
Right. It's not like there's a magic formula that you can just plug in and watch the innovation flow.
Every company has to find its own path.
And that path will depend on a variety of factors.
Like the industry you're in, the size of your company, your culture, your risk tolerance.
It's all about finding what works best for you.
Exactly. And that takes some experimentation.
You have to be willing to try new things, to fail fast and to learn from your mistakes.
And you have to be patient.
Open innovation is not a quick fix.
It's a long-term commitment.
It's about changing the way you think about innovation.
It's about opening up your company to new ideas from wherever they may come.
And it's about building a culture of collaboration and experimentation.
So if you're ready to embrace open innovation, Chesbrough offers some concrete steps you can take.
Lay it on us.
First, he suggests conducting an open innovation audit.
An audit.
Yeah. Basically, it's a way to assess your company's current approach to innovation.
So it's like a checkup.
Exactly. You want to look at things like,
How do you generate new ideas?
how do you evaluate those ideas?
How do you develop them?
How do you bring them to market?
And most importantly, how open are you to external ideas?
Right. The goal of the audit is to identify areas where you can be more open.
Okay, so you've conducted your audit and you've identified some areas for improvement. What's next?
Well, Chesbrough suggests developing a formal open innovation strategy.
A strategy.
Yeah, a roadmap for how you're going to make open innovation a reality in your company.
So what should that roadmap include?
Well, it should include things like
Your goals for open innovation.
the resources you're going to allocate, the processes you're going to put in place, the metrics you're going to use to measure your progress.
That should be a living document that you revisit and update regularly.
Exactly. And it should be something that you share with your entire team.
Because everyone needs to be on board with the open innovation journey.
Absolutely. Open innovation is not something that can be done in a silo.
It requires buy-in from everyone in the company.
From the CEO to the frontline employees.
So you've got your strategy in place. What are some practical things you can start doing to make open innovation a reality?
Well, one thing you can do is to create an idea portal.
An idea portal.
Yeah, it's basically a website where employees can submit their ideas for new products or services.
So it's like an internal suggestion box.
Sort of.
Yeah.
But it's more than that. It's a way to capture and track all the great ideas that are floating around your company.
And it's a way to make sure that those ideas get the attention they deserve.
Exactly. And it's not just for employees. You can also open up your idea portal to customers, partners, and even the general public.
So it's like crowdsourcing innovation.
It is. And it can be a great way to generate new ideas that you might never have thought of on your own.
What are some other practical things you can do?
Well, another thing you can do is to start attending industry events and conferences.
That's a great way to network with other companies and learn about what they're doing.
And you can also learn from the speakers and presentations.
It's like getting a crash course in open innovation.
Exactly. And you never know who you might meet.
You might find a new partner, a new customer, or even a new employee.
It's all about making connections.
All right, so we've talked about a lot of different things today.
We've covered a lot of ground.
But I think the most important takeaway is this.
Open innovation is not just a trend.
It's a fundamental shift in how companies approach innovation.
And it's essential for success in today's rapidly changing world.
So if you're not already thinking about open innovation, now is the time to start.
The future belongs to the companies that embrace it.
And that's a wrap on our deep dive into open innovation.
We hope you've enjoyed the journey.
And that you're feeling inspired to inject a little more openness into your own work.
Until next time, keep diving.